Well, in the studios with us is Barrister Mbeseha, and looking at these two reports, it leads us to the state of insecurity in the southern Cameroons. This paints a clear and grim picture of the heightened insecurity in the southern Cameroons. Barrister Mbeseha, I will leave this to you now to look at the fact that with all of this happening, they're people, I would say colonial proxies, or maybe not, ignorant people, so to put, who still believe that it is safe for children amidst all of this chaos and insecurity. They believe it is safe for children to go out to schools. We have seen cases like this in Mbengui, as you would know, and so many other counties. Would like you to react to that in this regard.
Well, thank you for having me on this topic again. You see, it is important that we do it so many times because schools are due to resume in the next 2 weeks or so. And then under the false pretext that there's security for children to go to school. The story just told us of the ability of the whoever forces have captured the brigade commander in Bamenda town. This is not a village. The brigade commanders who are armed, the policemen who are armed, can be captured, can be killed out in the streets there. How safe are the children, the little kids going to school, going to be safe? This topic has come up for debate for the first time maybe at this level since this struggle started. It came up because of this so-called press release that was purportedly signed by some people who claim to be Ambazonian liberation groups. And so that has put the issue on the limelight. And because it is on the limelight, as late as yesterday, we saw reactions from the Republic Agency, mostly in Kumba, that's Meme Division, and in Manyu, that's in Mamfi. So they have come in to call for school resumption on the pretext that there is normality, there is security. And to do that, they summoned the principals of schools, head teachers, village leaders, and brought them to their offices to preach the doctrine. And I saw them deliver the message. And the teachers in Kumba, they had a teacher who was their spokesman, the principal of one of those schools, who spoke for all the educational institutions in Kumba and told the DO 3 things. Mr. DO, there is no security around. He reminded them that most of the schools that were vandalized, none had been rebuilt. He reminded them that in the crisis, the government has transferred teachers from those very areas to different places, which is what we said yesterday. There are no teachers there. How are you going to start a school where there are no teachers, where there's nothing going on? And so that was the same story in Mamfi. But let us come back to this call for a return to school, to resumption of schools, in a more detailed way. Yesterday I had the opportunity, a very lucky opportunity to watch Chris Anu on ABS trying to explain what the release meant. And I went back to that release, and read it, and tried to find out what they were doing. It happened that what Chris Anu was explaining as the basis for the release and the contents of the release was totally different from what the release said. According to Chris Anu, they met. They were not just copied, they met. Those people who were copied the document all met somewhere, maybe by Zoom or whatever form, and agreed on something. And so I looked at those who were copied. Who are those who were copied? Who met? It was Chris Anu, who was copied as IG, who was Avis Komata, who was copied or who participated as chairman of the SCNC. It was one Florentine Fonche, who participated, who was copied as leader of ROA. ROA stands for Republic of Ambazonia, which is supposed to be headed by Gojidinka. They copied a certain J. Taylor, who purportedly sat there for something in the ACT. What is ACT? ACT is a group that President Sakura created, Ambazonia Coalition Team. And Taylor represented Akwanga there. Now, I'll come back to that. And then they also copy Akwanga as the leader of the APLM. They're looking at this group there, this people who took part in this meeting. If I told they took part, does any of this have any representation on the ground to claim to order a school resumption? SCNC has ceased to exist, never on the ground forever, for the past 7 years. So how can they be calling for school resumption when they were not there, when they're not even there? Florentine Fonche, who is standing for ROA. Since the struggle started in 2016, I've not heard about ROA. It is supposed to be headed by Edwin Ngang. We've not heard about him anywhere. Those are people sad. Then they have this Eya Marianta for IG, 2 IGs. And Mr. Anu claims to have succeeded Eya Marianta. So everyone who is there, Eya Marianta's IG is no longer existing. At least according to Kometa, who was in that very meeting. How could they be sitting there with Eya Marianta agreeing on something with Anu when officially by the rule of Kometa, Eya Marianta's group has ceased to exist? Then what this group called J. Taylor, who stood in for ACT. Again, ACT was a small group created for the purposes of the Swiss-led negotiations. But this is not the first time. Taylor has represented ACT in Canada and getting paid as a group. So when it came to monetize the ACT is there under Choyaba. No, not Choyaba, under Akwanga. Because ACT, the representative came in, Taylor took the money as ACT. That's an arm of Akwanga. And Akwanga himself came in. And lastly, we go to Akwanga. I find Mr. Akwanga sitting there. Akwanga, since 2019, officially called off the struggle. I'm not the one saying it. He said during the COVID, when the United Nations Secretary General called for ceasefire, he ceased fire. But instead of doing that, he still went and took money from the ACT. He went into the ACT, went to the Swiss-led initiative, collected money, so he wanted to train his own peacemakers or whatever thing in Ghana, and disappeared. And so these are people who are supposed to have sat down to agree. But that is not even all. There's so much into it. This is what Anu is saying. But that is not what their press release is saying. Their press release says expressly that they talked with A Gov C. They didn't say they talked with Joe Ayaba. They didn't say they talked with Anu. They were simply copied. According to Anu, they were calling for a school resumption for private schools and community schools. Their release does not say that. Their release says school resumption without discrimination. As simple as that. According to Chris Anu, they were saying that school should resume without uniform. They should not wear uniform. They were not calling on government schools to resume. But the press release simply says schools should resume. They don't distinguish the schools. And they didn't ban uniforms. They banned the Ambazonian flag. The Republic flag and anthem. That was banned in their release. If you read the release, they banned only the flag and the anthem, not the uniforms. And it's so contradictory. Mr. Andrew is calling for private schools to start. Different private schools, for example, religious schools, have different uniforms. Sase wears a different uniform. Sacred Heart wears a different uniform. So they have to go to school without uniforms? That is questionable. But above all, and the most important thing is, the so-called AGOF-C, that is represented by Choayeba, has come out formally denouncing the press release. In other words, they were not even part of it. Even though they are mentioned there as actually having a discussion with the people I'm being copied. Joe Ayaba has put out a statement saying that, denouncing that nonsense, denouncing the date in the first place, and denouncing the whole idea of even starting schools. Because according to him, they should start schools where they have their own programs, they don't deal with colonial education, so on and so forth. So when you see all this, you see the confusion that they're bringing. Okay, is it possible for Mr. Choayaba to ever think that we, at this stage, we can create schools where we run the schools on our own terms? No, that has never happened. He said the school should open in safe zones and implement their own program. So let us assume that Momo, which is the hideout for ADF, school starts there. They are going to run their own school program differently, different from one which is in Manfe, in Bamanda, and so on and so forth. So it's a sham story. And so if you put all these things together, you find that this morning I saw UN put out something there, and I tried to verify. That Mimi 4 had put out something on our account saying that Mr. Minister of the Electoral Administration has said that he has talked to Ambazonian fighters and that he's taking care of school resumption. All this confusion in this press release puts the whole thing to question. Could they have been manipulated by somebody? As I said yesterday, this press release is signed by two people, Mr. Nima Fontaine, that we don't know in what capacity, and Mark Fallen, Joe. We don't know in what capacity. Is it possible that we have been infiltration just for purpose of this school resumption to infiltrate the Ambazonian struggle? It's highly possible. But is it avoidable? It is avoidable. How can we avoid it? Look up to what this government has put out as a stand on school resumption. We said, I have insisted, and we shall continue to insist, the security is the concern. Let parents judge. If the security for the children, they can send their children to school. We have also stated in that our statement that with time, when we take over the country fully, we shall be able to either replace, reform, or institute our own education policies. But until then, there's nothing we can do now. We cannot do an education policy for Mayu, another one for Dian, another one for Momo, and so on and so forth. So the statements of Mr. Choayaba are so misplaced. They have no meaning in anything called education. They don't, and based on what I've just said, and the reports coming from Manfi, from the villagers, from the teachers appointed by the government who have been asked to go back to school, and telling the colonial administrators who cannot go. And the response that the colonial administrator, the senior DO in Kuba, gave is what interested me. After all this, what did he say to the people? He said, go and tell your boys to lay down their arms and let the school resume. They had called on him to bring more military camps to schools, to villages, to ensure the security. Bottom line, no security. If you want to go to school, think twice. Even if you're in town, see what has happened, if the story is true. If they can capture a brigade commander in center of Bamenda, if they can gun them down without any arrest.
Invested with a lot of other colonial forces.
Think twice when you go to put a uniform on your child to go to school. Or it's over to you. Your security is yours. The advice is ours. Take what you like. The risk is yours. Over to you.
You know, this action of Choya about talking about him instituting the schools and all of that is like another action, just like the taxi colors, putting the cart before the horse, always coming up with very anti-revolutionary actions that are quite on the extreme and could be classified as radical. You know, just like when he said Amazonian cars, taxi cars, should be painted blue and white. That shouldn't be the first objective. And it's the same thing he's saying when it comes to schools right now in Amazonia. Most of his actions have really proving to reveal rather where he stands. But then the Colonia DO asking for schools to be resumed. We got the reactions of the population, of course. They said a big no to that because they had quite tangible reasons. First of all, the security, which is the most important. They had 3 reasons why they certainly would not consider this resumption of school. Not because every Ambazonian wants to go to school, but when you realize what is at stake at this point in time, it is only a rather wise decision that you make other provisions. I believe on this Undaunted here, you've given other options that people could learn in the meantime, looking at the whole status quo of Ambazonia, looking at the war status of Ambazonia, other options for people to be able to learn amidst all of this. But going to school in a time of war with no contingencies put in place, with no security, that is rather unwise. And I think would like you to reiterate, other options where Amazonians could look into to educate themselves in the meantime during the wartime, because going to schools are not advisable at this time. Barrister Mbeseha.
Well, there are things that are factual that we cannot escape. When we are in war, this is not the first country to be in war. This is not the first community to go to war. Once there's war, the situations are so different. Even in an internal conflict. I remember being in the Côte d'Ivoire. Yes, it was purely internal. And I was in the north, where the rebellion was headquartered. Schools have virtually closed down there. But as far as Ambazonia is concerned, a good number of Ambazonians who have been able to become internally displaced with their children in neighboring towns and somewhere else. But thousands, if not millions of others, have nowhere to go. While the war surges on, the women are delivering children. Woman was pregnant in 2016. The child is already 7-8 years old, past the age of going to school. And so what do we do in this circumstance? We give them the basics, the very basics. Giving the child a nursery school education or primary school education is not the best, but it's a start somewhere. Because everybody wants his or her child to go up to university, to go up to secondary school, to go up to technical schools. They don't have that ability to do that. But you can give your children the basics. Homeschooling, if it is possible, or organize yourselves into community schools. It is feasible. And I can say it is feasible because almost every Ambazonian community has a large diaspora that can assist in putting up community schools for the children. That will give the children the basic. They are not giving the children the standard education. They are giving them the basic. Just teaching them how to read and write. Because when the time comes, at the end of the day, we'll create something, hopefully, called adult school. The children who have been delayed and are already of age, maybe they are 18, they are already 17, before the war ends, they have not even gone to class 1. They will be able to create adult schools. Adult schools have always been in Amazonia. That will make a catch-up. I know people, for example, I never went to Sunday school. We wrote the GCE, doing adult evening classes from home. And we're able to pass and go to university. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel. But we must admit that in time of war, there is no way that you're going to get the education as functional as in normal times. Okay. You can own the community school. You may not have all the money to have all the teachers. You may have only 2-3 teachers. Even if you have them, you may not have all the books. So many things, logistically, infrastructure-wise, the classrooms are not enough. So let them get the best they can do it. And for those who have the structures, those who have the ability to, where there's security, take advantage of that. Send your child to whatever school you can find. The rest, manage what you can, hoping that tomorrow will improve on it. Better days, but in wartime, nothing is normal. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha. Well heeded too. Looking at the war in Amazonia, which is the only reason at this time Amazonians are advising themselves, not just us from here, to rather stay put than go to school. We know that this war wouldn't have escalated if only La Republique would have agreed to go to the mediation table, but because of their interest in the southern Cameroons, they'd rather wage a war on Amazonia than go to the mediation table and allow justice prevail. They'd rather wage this war than do that. We're looking at a country who is trying to annex another country and tell the world that these two countries are one, even if history strongly disputes that untrue statement and untrue narrative.